You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
What's up, Coaches Nation? It's Dr. Sheri and Faisal for another episode of the Coach's Journey podcast. So today, we really want to unpack for you the perspectives around investing in your business. Now, the reason that we're bringing this up, and this is a topic for today, is because we have had, particularly Faisal, we've had a lot of conversations with newer coaches, and they're coming into coaching with this perspective, this mindset that they don't necessarily need to invest into their business to get it off the ground and to get it running. And from our experiences in business, that might be a little misguided, and there might be a false expectation, which then will lead to frustration, self-doubt, and maybe even dropping out of coaching before they even have a chance to have the impact that they're dreaming of having. So we're going to talk about that all today, to share our perspectives, to share what we have gone through, and hopefully to open your mind to ideas on how to move your business forward in a way that's going to work. It's going to be productive.
I'm excited about this because this is an area that I have a lot of pain associated with it in the beginning of my journey, but it was also an area where I realized how important it was as I went through that journey and I started seeing the ROI on the other side, the return on that investment. So it'll be interesting to think about this.
Yeah, so we're going to use a framework that, quite frankly, I use with investors. So I'm a real estate investor. I've been doing that for a long time. And some of the coaching and consulting that I've done over the years has been in the real estate space. And so I just built a simple framework because a lot of real estate investors, they get the shiny object syndrome. They get into real estate investing and there's 29 different strategies you can use to invest. And they're like, I don't know what to start with. And they're bouncing all over the place and they don't really get traction in any one thing. So most of us have heard it's time or money. If you have more time, then you need less money. And if you have less time, then you need to invest more money. And I do think that there is a huge amount of merit to that. So that's part of the framework we're going to use today is thinking about your own life. And we're going to talk a little bit about our lives, like how much time did we have? How much money did we have? What did that balance look like? But there's also a third area that I think is grossly overlooked, and that's relationships. Because if you have some very important and critical relationships, business relationships, referral type relationships that you can depend on, that may not require a lot of your time or money, but that's something that also can help grow your business. So we're looking at time, money, and relationships.
Awesome. I love that framework because it's funny that I never thought of it in these ways, but had I been a little bit more intentional, I would understand that, okay, when I was starting out, I didn't have a lot of money. Actually, I had no money. So on the negative cash flow side, if there is such a thing. So
there is.
In fact, my initial investment literally was when my wife and I, we were at the conference with Brennan Burchard. He offers a certified high performance coaching, 10 grand. We were already in debt being there. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this on my own. And then I think my wife was wise enough that she's like, no, we need this. You don't know what you're doing. I didn't. I had no idea what I was doing. I was so overwhelmed.
So you were going to jump into coaching, but without a certification, without training, you're just like, I'll figure it out.
So it wasn't just coaching because I went to Experts Academy. It was everything. I just got fed with the fire hose of, oh, you can be a coach, you can be an author, you can be a speaker. I had no idea what I was doing. I was so overloaded, but I'm like, you know what? I'll figure this out. I got this.
A little overconfidence. I love it.
A little arrogance, a little overconfidence. And deep down, I knew, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I guess my wife saw that because she had seen me for a few years until then. Then we need this. This is important. And I even told her, I'm like, okay, if you want to do it, you do it. I'll do this thing. I'll do the influencer thing. And she actually signed up for it. She'll be so happy that I'm sharing this story. So she signed up for it. And I'm like, what the hell are we going to do to get the money? She's like, I don't care. Call your mom. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I literally had to call her. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to pay you this in a few months and give me 3 months. She's like, okay. Didn't you just spend a lot of money to get there and do all this stuff? Why are you spending more money? Like, okay, I'll explain after, but can we do this right now? I put it on 3 payments on her card and I'm like, okay, I better figure this out. So it moved forward and that was 10 grand, 10K. And I thought, okay, that's all I needed. That wasn't not true, because when I came back, first, I was still overwhelmed. First of all, I'm still in the beginning stages of even learning what the hell coaching is. I didn't know coaching. I knew I had a predisposition to doing this very well, but I didn't know coaching and I didn't realize how much was in there. And then one of the weird moments that came up to me, like a week of training versus 4 or 5 years of university, something is off here. Like, how the hell am I going to become a world-class coach after this much training? And then I heard Brandon Burchard say, it's like, it's one of those jobs, one of those skills you're going to learn on the job. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I'm going to jump into it. So from that point on, first of all, that initial 10 grand was not enough. What ended up happening, I had to invest in multiple different courses to even understand, like, how the hell am I going to market myself, and then start hiring other coaches to get me to move forward. If I were to kind of fast forward up until today, it's well over, like, if I were to do a wild guess, it's well over 100K in the past 7 years investment in my business and my coaching, well over. That would be a very conservative estimate. And also my wife started investing more in her own coaching. She went through that. We also got coaching, and I've gotten several business coaches too. So as I've gone through that journey, I realized how much I needed to invest. Now, granted, in the beginning, I didn't have a lot of money, but I needed to find a way to do that. I needed to find a way. And I had to, even at that time, I knew that when I came back from that event, I knew that the business was not going to pick up that fast. So I needed to do something. So I started driving Uber. So that means I was the sole provider. So if I took all the hours of the week into account, and also have some time with my family and start this new business, even if I put it down to, and this is a good estimate, if I worked on the business at least 10 to 12 hours, I would still need to do that work, like my job, to be able to sustain ourselves. Like, without that, it wasn't going to happen. And that's with the 10,000 already in. And so that was sort of the beginning of it. And I didn't realize how much I needed to invest. And recently I had a conversation with one of our members who didn't realize this, because he was thinking about, like, okay, which expenses do I need to remove for me to sustain my life better? And what do I need to focus on? And he asked me, he's like, how much did you focus on? I'm like, well, initially in the first couple of years, I invested $20,000 before my business even began to pick up, like with just a few members, a few clients that I had. He's like, oh, shoot, I didn't know that. Like, I thought I didn't need to invest that much. I'm like, well, and that kind of made me realize, like, I didn't have a lot of time. So I needed to leverage something else. I needed somebody to help me quickly go there. So it's either coaches, it's either courses, but ultimately it came down to, is like, who can help me implement this the fastest? Absolutely. Because you can shortcut that time. And I've shared this enough. It took me about 2.5 years to pick up my business. I did not need to take that long. If I put in the kind of effort that I did in that first year, and I had the support and guidance, and I had the feedback from the marketplace, it would have been 1 year. I would have had at least 5 or 6 clients, but it took me 2.5 years. That was not necessary. And that was, a lot of it was, I didn't know, like, what I should do to do that. Now, you talked about, like, your degree before. Before jumping into engineering, you already know I'm spending about 50,000-60,000 before even starting, and that's not even paying me off. And then being in debt after a while after that, and then getting a job, not the best job, but you're training under another engineer for a while, for a couple of years, until you get to the next senior engineer position. That's when you can start to expect a 6-figure salary. And so that journey is about 5 to 7 years. And very similarly in coaching, it took me about 4 years, three and a half, I'd say 3.5 to 4 years to get to 6-figure. And then after that, multiple 6 figures as I've moved forward. But that became much faster. Had I stayed in my career in engineering, that would not have been the case. I would have stuck at the 6-figure for a while. I know I threw a lot in there, but what do you think, Sheri?
Yeah, I think there's some aspects of your story that I know will resonate with some of you that are listening. And that is, you were a sole provider and you I love this part. I didn't know this. You borrowed the money from your mom to get your certification in coaching. And you're like, okay, I need to pay her credit card off in 3 months. Like, that's awesome. So there was a little bit of a
more than that to pay her off, just like.
So a little well-placed necessity. That's good. But I think that's fantastic because a lot of people will be able to resonate with that story of being the sole provider, of needing to figure out. A lot of the coaches that we've worked with, they're already doing something else and they're like trying to transition, like they've got a foot in both worlds, or, maybe there's a spouse that works as well. And so they don't need the income. Now they're able to kind of build into it. But then there's folks like you that are like, you know what, I'm all in, I'm bought in, like, let's do this. And so recognizing like how much time do you have to really figure this out? And do you really want to spend the time to figure this out? Because the best way to learn is by your own mistakes. But the second best way to learn is by other people's mistakes. You don't know other people's mistakes unless you're kind of in relationship and having conversations and getting coaching or consulting that helps kind of integrate that into kind of what you're doing. So I see all of that stuff as kind of playing a factor into your first few years of coaching.
And I actually just realized that I didn't even think of that, but just a few years later, like I was talking to my wife the other day, and she's like, okay, where's all our money going here with all the work that you're doing constantly? I'm like, I thought about it, I'm like, to be honest, half of our money is with the family members right now. And I feel good about that because a lot of them needed help with their businesses as they were starting it or as they were shifting, and they just need, and I gave them a lot more that I was given to me to help them get started, because I know the value of that, how important that was for me. And that did a lot. But just being in a position to be able to do that, I think a lot of coaches relate with that. And investors talk about this too. You know what? I want to be able to help the people in my life. And to me, as I was starting out, I'm like, you know what? I know I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to be able to support other people, but right now I need the help. And but whether that's a community, whether that's your family, whoever it is, sometimes we kind of look at ourselves as this isolated thing. When I was calling my mom, I wasn't like, yes, I needed to pay her back and everything, but I know that she wants to see me to be successful. And I know that she's rooting for me, even though she might have like all sorts of reservations and everything. And I'm not saying people should borrow or not borrow, that's their decision. But what I'm saying is stepping back from our own insecurities and our own challenges, being a little bit vulnerable. Hey, I need help, whether that help is in terms of time, resources, or something else. That's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned on this journey, because I've constantly needed help. And when you actually become vulnerable, ask for help, you actually recognize that a lot of people need help and they might not be open about it. And I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with family and friends. I'm like, so one of the first things, like, where do you need help? They won't say. Like, I literally have to pull it out of them. Like, where do you need help? Where are you struggling? And it's not that I want, like, I need them. Like, what do you need? Because it doesn't even cross people's mind. Like, oh, well, I need to be independent. I need to be strong. I need to be this. We all rely on each other. And once you move up, then you get to help other people as well. And maybe even more people than those that helped you. Something like I feel like as conscious adults, we should know that, but I wasn't conscious or adult at that time, to be honest.
Welcome to adulthood, Faisal.
Well, thank you. It took me a little bit.
Well, and what you're talking about is so important because it really is the value of the relationships. And again, I think this is the most under-recognized aspect of investing in your business, and that is cultivating those relationships and like calling on them when needed. Hey, I need some support. I need some help, and sometimes that support is financial, like borrowing money. And I will say that my husband and I, we have borrowed probably, besides from banks, I'm just kind of thinking through, probably close to 4 to 5, like almost $500,000 from different individuals over the years for real estate investing. But if we hadn't done that, we hadn't like had that, which was very awkward initially. Like, can I borrow some money because I have this deal and I want to do this thing, but I don't quite have enough in my bank account. Like, that's a very humbling experience, or it can be depending on the mindset. And it was for us in the beginning, like we had to get over ourselves if we were going to try to kind of achieve our goals in investing that way. But if you can cultivate that, regardless of if it's your coaching business or anything else, sometimes it's money related, but sometimes it's just, hey, I need some support. Maybe you're a single mom and you really feel compelled to coach, and you have a full-time job that's paying the bills for you and your kids. And you're struggling because you're like, okay, I work all day. The only time I have to coach is nights or weekends or both. But I've got kids that quite can't be self-sufficient. So what do I do? Well, this is a great opportunity to ask for help. Who in your life can you ask, hey, could you come over for maybe, even just a couple hours out of the week, maybe one night a week, feed the kids, have some game night or whatever, while you're in the other room, sequestered, working on your coaching business, making calls, reaching out to people, doing strategy sessions. There is sometimes that relationship block that we have of feeling, whether it's pride or whatever. And sometimes, quite honestly, we say, oh, well, we act out of humility, or we say we're being so humble, but it's still pride. The fact that I'm not asking for help is putting me in a position that's higher than other people. It's just kind of in reverse. But either way, get over yourself. You are here to serve other people. You're here to have an impact. And I could go on a rant on that. The last thing I'll say before I pass the baton to you, Faisal, is, and I remember I've tried to use this frame of reference on many people over the years, and it is this: when you deny the ability or deny somebody else the opportunity to help you, you're denying intimacy, a level of your relationship with them that they won't get otherwise. And so aren't you actually being selfish by not offering an opportunity for somebody to come into your life and help you? Think about when somebody has asked for your help, who is really in a vulnerable position. They're like, oh, I really need your help. Did you not excitingly feeling like a sense of gratitude that you had the ability to have a positive impact in their life? So if you're not allowing people into your life to do that, you're robbing them of that opportunity.
Yeah, I come in, and that's such a simple idea, but it took me such a long time to kind of get a hold of it in my experience. And I actually had to go through, and that's the other thing I want to stress on here. I had to go through a lot of coaching to understand that. And this is why I know that there is power in coaching, because most of the shifts that have been created even before that moment, but afterwards, and when I jumped into this world, was that somebody saw something either in me that I never got to see, which was my potential. I never saw that myself. Somebody else saw it. Somebody else saw that in me, and you get to see that in other people as well. And other people that have been able to, my coaches, my mentors, that have been able to kind of point out some key things. I'm like, you're messing around in this area, but it looks like you can do a lot in here. And I still remember some very key conversation that allowed me to let go a lot of things, like be able to forgive, be able to move on, be able to be at peace. It was very direct observations from people who I was able to be vulnerable with. And most of those are my coaches.
Yeah.
And they literally pointed out, okay, what will it take for you to let it go? And I was like, what? And just that question implies that I am the one holding this. Nobody else is forcing this on me.
Yeah.
Small moments, seemingly small moments, allowed me to create so much space within myself to, okay, life is too short. I cannot hold on to that. It was affecting my relationships. It was affecting so many areas of my life. Same thing in business. I kept telling myself over and over that, hey, you know what? I'm putting out content. I'm doing this. All it took was somebody to look at it like, it seems like you're doing a lot of stuff, but are you actually getting clients? And what are you doing to get clients? When I would hear that, I'm like, what am I doing to get clients? And then the conclusion in my head was that I was hoping to get clients. And then I always say this, I'm like, hope is not a good strategy in business.
No, it should not be part of your business plan.
Hope is a really incredibly powerful thing to get started, but you need strategy in business. You need to be proactive in business. You need to be consistent. And that requires a very different way of looking at your life.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in putting a business in place, and I love the play on words, busyness does not mean business. And so in creating a business and creating your coaching to be a true business that has systems, that has predictability, that has income, and the income results in profitability. All of that stuff requires either, or a combination of, your time. You have to put in the time. Even if you choose to invest more in money, you have more money and you're like, okay, I need to get this to happen as quick as possible. So I'm going to invest in time. I'm going to join the coaching mastery community to get a lot of the support and information, all this sort of stuff. There still is an amount of time, because you're not going to be a rock star coach right from the get-go unless you have a very similar past career. And even as a psychologist, there was a big shift for me. And I still feel like every day I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm getting my coaching feet under me, because there is still a shift for me even in that. So you got to spend the time, but if you don't have as much time, you got to spend the money. Or if you don't have the money, you got to spend the time, but then also the relationships. Like, these are the ways in which you invest in your business. And so as you're listening to this, think about yourself, think about your own situation. Do you have some extra cash? Like, are you working another job? Do you have some savings? Do you have some extra cash that you can use to hire mentors, coaches, be part of our community, do these things so that you don't have to make the same painful mistakes for 2.5 years that Faisal did? And maybe you can shorten it to, 6 months and be able to have enough clients to feel like, or to see that there is a foundation set. And then you can just go from there. So it's just, got to invest in your business. Don't expect it to just build it and they will come, because it's not the reality for anybody that I've seen.
Yeah, and I want to also make it more specific and tangible for those who are listening, because I have shared this with every coach that I've talked to within our group. And one of the things that we're trying to do in CMC is we want you to either have clients already or get clients quickly. It's an investment for you to build your business and build your life. It should pay for itself. And so if it's not paying for itself, there's something off. So if I get on a call with somebody and they don't have clients, I'll ask them, how much time are you spending? What are you doing in that time? So as a baseline, you should be spending at least 10 to 12 hours a week. If you're not, it's going to go very slow. And most people can find that much time, even if they're doing a full-time job, even if they have a family. And I've seen this in the real estate world. I've seen this in the coaching world. I've gone through that journey. You can carve that out, not all at once, but an hour and a half, 2 hours every day will do it. And so my biggest recommendation in that area is that you're doing something every day, or at least 5 days a week, something related to that coaching. Now, what is that something? If you don't have any program or mentors or anything, and I'm assuming that you have some kind of coaching training, you understand what coaching is, then you're spending a part of that time, at least 3 hours a week, developing on that, learning more about how that works. So that means you're watching other coaches do their work. You're listening to other coaches, what they're talking about. So this podcast will be part of that. You're watching other coaches do the work. So likely you have a space where, like, if you've gone through certification, you've seen coaching sessions, how that works, getting feedback on it from other coaches. Or you're coaching somebody like as a buddy coaching and you're getting feedback on that. That part, you cannot omit that, because when coaches jump in, they're like, well, I just need to pick up the business. It's not disconnected. If you can't coach people, if you cannot add that value in that first session, nobody's going to sign up with you. So that piece is essential. That piece, we have it embedded in coaching mastery community.
Can I just quick add to that? One of the things I noticed myself as a psychologist is I had all this training and I still was doing training, but there got to be a point where I kind of got comfortable in what I knew and what I was doing, and I stopped learning. And I absolutely know that was evident in how I showed up and what I delivered. And so I think one of the valuable pieces of continuing to learn, such as you're talking about, is it keeps new ideas coming in. And we all know what happens when we have new ideas come in. There's a little centers in our brains light up. We've got serotonin and dopamine and all of these neurotransmitters dumping into our brains. And it feels good and it's exciting and energizing. So it will show up on your face. If you're doing, Facebook videos or different things like that, you can be like, guess what I learned this week? This thing. And you're talking with excitement because you're learning, and that's going to attract people too. So there's so many reasons for you to continue that learning journey.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get complacent, and especially after you get a few clients. And I went through a period of that. I think every coach kind of falls into that, depends how long, where I had enough clients coming in. I didn't need to, I had so many referrals coming in. I didn't even need to do an outreach. And I didn't realize how negative that was in my thinking at the time. But what I also realized was that my sessions were getting affected. I was kind of showing up like, even though I loved the sessions, it was becoming more of a job because I was not learning enough to apply outside of that. One of the ways that I gauge how my coaching business is going is, am I trying something new with my clients every week? If I'm not doing that, even now, after 7.5 years, something is off.
Mm.
And part of it is your clients are going to actually force you, which I'll talk about, that force you to grow. But as a baseline, you need to be in that world of learning. Part of it will be mentally. There has to be an experiential component, whether it's another coach you're coaching and you're getting feedback. And then the other part of your time, let's say you spend 3 hours on that in a week. The rest of your time needs to go on prospecting. And here's why it's important, which means that you are connecting with people. I don't care if they're paying you or not, you're finding people to coach. Ideally, they're paying you, or at least you're doing one initial session that you can offer something for. That is the ideal situation. Let's say you don't have that. Whatever the case is, you're coaching people. You're actually in a given week, you should be at least coaching 3 people, if not more, per week, because 3 different people, and they're not just coaches, they're people that you are outside of coaches that you get to coach, and you're seeing the effect of it. And that's going to push you to see, because you're going to start to see gaps in your coaching process. You're going to start to see gaps. You're like, I don't know how to navigate this area. What am I going to do? Then you go back to that coach and you're like, how do you do it?
Yes.
And that is like, if you look at it from, let's bring in the military standpoint. It's like in military, they go through a lot of training, consistent training. But the only way they get to test that, the effect of that training, is when they're in battle. So I know it's a sort of a negative thing for some people, but just entertain me. So when this is the battle, like the actual coaching is the battle, that's the only place you're going to get the real feedback of the effect of your coaching. And you also see your weak points and strengths, and you can amplify on the strengths, work on the weak areas, and move forward. Without that, there is no business. And on top of that, without that prospecting, it doesn't matter how many posts you put out there. It doesn't matter how many funnels you're working on or your website you're working on. There is no business. Yeah. And there's no skill set improvement if you're not at least working with 3 people. So out of the 12 hours or 10 hours, you're spending 7 to 8 hours prospecting and working with people. Yeah. Now, if you do that consistently for the next 90 days, ideally, you have a couple of clients you're already working with. And if you haven't, there are some blocks that are stopping you. And you're going to sit with that for the next 6 months to 1 year and 2 years. And that's what I want you to think about, is because if you've already gone through this for the past 3 months or 6 months, or when you're going to sit there for another 6 months or 2 years, and you might be trying to hold on to that money. It's like, oh, you know what? No, this is my savings. I don't want to touch this, and not reinvesting it, but you're losing time. You're losing time, you're losing energy, you're losing resources, and you're probably building up all sorts of stuff that's affecting your relationships. Yeah. And it's not taking your business anywhere. And you're probably gonna, at some point, the pain will get so much, you're gonna fall prey to one of these big marketing companies who will tell you, I'll build the right funnel for you, and you will just work with a lot of clients. You'll pay a bunch of money and nothing is gonna happen. Not because they're kind of tricking you, but they're just teaching you what they know. And that might not apply to what you're doing.
Right. And there's more to marketing. You can market all you want, but if you suck at sales and you're not able to have those strategy calls be effective and tweak those over time and all of those things, like the whole thing needs to come together. Like if you're really good in one piece, it's going to be hard for the whole thing to work well. It's going to be clunky, and you're just going to be frustrated because not everything is kind of flowing into each other as a well-oiled business. And so a lot of what you're saying, Faisal, I love, because you're kind of laying out the perspective. Okay, well, if you're really unsure about the money, okay, great. You know what? Here's what you need to do. You just laid it out. You need to spend 12 hours a week. A third or a quarter of that is spent continuing to learn. 3/4 of that is you need to be doing the hard and probably uncomfortable work of reaching out and prospecting and having those conversations. And it's going to feel deflating at times. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel salesy, probably. Not that it has to be, but when most people, most coaches, what I've seen, and I fall into this category when I shifted over, because in mental health, I didn't have to sell. Like, people had insurance, and if they needed it, they knew where to go. So I didn't have to do that. And so I've really had to ramp up my sales abilities because I no longer accept insurance. And so people want my services, they got to fork the money out. And so it's harder to convince, it's harder to have that conversation. But if you're struggling and you're spending a few months doing all the right things that you believe needs to happen and it's not working out for you, you got to get that outside perspective. And that might be the time where you fork over a little money, and it's not an expense. Just like you might tell your client, coaching is not an expense. It's an investment in you, and you are the best investment in your life and into your future. Same thing with coaching as a business. It's not an expense in your business, although you can write it off, and that's a great thing, but it's an investment into your business that is going to pay dividends, guaranteed, as long as you're doing the work, as long as you're engaged and you're utilizing what it is that you're paying for and you're putting it into practice.
So that part is really important to understand. Actually, there was a clip that I watched of Grant Cardone. You might not like him, but it doesn't matter. Like, in that moment, I really understood. Now, Grant Cardone is an investor, and he runs his events to attract more investors and also students for his programs. There was this young guy sitting there in the audience. He gets up at like early 20s, and he gets up, he tells Grant Cardone, he's like, I've spent the past few years listening to your content, reading your books and everything. I went from barely making any money to making $200K a year. And he's like, I'm in a position where I can invest, but I don't know where to invest. And you can tell, he's like, what should I do? And he's like, right, like he's in front of thousands of people and he's about to give advice, and he has to check in, like, what is he doing? He also needs people to invest with him too in there. And I loved what he told them. And I was like, this might make or break my relationship with Grant Cardone right here, because it's very easy.
You and Grant are like buds, aren't you?
It's funny because I have a weird relationship. There are things that I don't agree with him, but there are things that I really love the way, because it became more evident as I started building a business. I'm like, okay, he's telling the truth. Like, some of the things about the abundance piece of things, it hit me. He was talking about, I don't care about how much money I have, but what I care about is my time with my family and the people that I want to connect with. He's like, I call all these millionaires and billionaires. I have my jet ready. Let's go spend some time for a week. I'm going to meet you there. I'm going to fly you there. They're all busy working. All that they don't know how to take because they're scared. As soon as he said that, I'm like, I know that feeling. And I've seen that feeling in my clients too. Oh, then I understood what he was talking about when it comes to abundance, is that a lot of people don't have abundance because they're afraid, not because they don't have money. Because there are a lot of people with money, they don't do shit with it. So, like, going back to the other story, so this young guy, he's about to, like, he will listen to everything Grant Cardone will say, because he's been following him for 5 years. You could pretty much tell him anything. He'll tell him to jump up and down. He will do that in that moment. But that's your investment. So what he tells him was really powerful. He's like, listen, you're young. The real estate world is not going anywhere. And this is coming from a very successful real estate investor. What I need you to do is build yourself up. I need you to build confidence in yourself. I need you to find a way to not only make that money, 10x that, and find a way to keep doing that and amplify that to the next level. I need you to become so confident in your ability to make that and amplify that, that you don't question that ever. And then you can slowly start to put in money into the real estate world. You need to invest in yourself back. You have a while to go. For the next couple of years, few years, reinvest. Get coaches, get mentors, get everything that you need to strengthen what you have in front of yourself. And then you can invest that money wherever you want to. Nothing is running away. And when he said that, I'm like, oh shit, okay, he cared.
I was kidding. That's awesome. I love that advice. I feel like leaving it on the note of the power of investing in ourselves, which is literally the foundation of coaching. And what I think is so crazy is that we're trying to convince other people that they should invest in themselves. And yet we as coaches struggle with investing in ourselves. Let's not be hypocritical and figure out a way to invest in yourself as a coach. Maybe that investment is primarily time right now, but if you do the work, you will get the results. Like, it will happen. And there's no predictability of like what it's going to look like and how long and all that stuff. But if you do the work, you are going to start to get results. And as you get the results, then you can invest not just your time, but also money. Or if you have the money already from other aspects, that before outside of coaching and or whatever, but you got to invest in yourself. Just figure out what that looks like for you.
And investing in yourself and your business, they're both two different things, but they come back to you. And I just want to lay this out. Everything that we've talked about here, one of the reasons why CMC is such a unique environment, coaching mastery community, is that we've taken, it's not just one person, all of our partners and members, we've taken what we've learned in the coaching world, like what works, what doesn't work, and what would help us implement things better. And we've turned that into coaching mastery community. So all the things that we described, you will get feedback for your coaching process, whether it works or doesn't work, positive or negative. That's a very big part of our culture, is to give each other feedback so you can improve that piece. You will learn how sales operates within the coaching context, how marketing operates within the coaching context. You don't need to become a master of either. You just need to learn how it works in the coaching world. And we will help you get direct feedback as to what's actually happening out in the marketplace. So you're not wondering whether something that you're doing is working or not. We'll help you develop that system to get consistent clients. And that's what the community is about. And it's not just 1%, it's a lot of people going out there, getting feedback, bringing it back. That is going to be incredibly, it doesn't exist right now in the coaching world. We've looked around, it's not there. One of the reasons why we got all frustrated, because we've all invested in so many different programs, 5,000, 10,000, 24,000. None of them have given us the value. And these are very small cohort groups that help you actually implement this and move forward. And I can tell you this, as a coach, and I was just talking to one of the coaches in our community, is like, all I need is 5K per month for me to move forward. So there was a time where I used to think, oh my God, 5K, how am I going to make that? But being at 25K per month right now, that looks too small for me. And I'm likely thinking very small too in my business. And I know that working with enough business coaches that you can move up. Now, it's not necessarily just about money, but that resource is going to help you create time. It's going to help you create more abundance. It's going to help you help other people around you. It's going to help you make your business sustainable. You're thinking very small. You're probably thinking, I just need to make 3,000 a month, everything. For one thing, you're not taking into account you're running a business, because that's not enough to run a business. Second, you probably think that you can't build a business that's very lucrative. And that's probably because you have a lot of gaps as to how this business works and how actually the influencer path works. And we can help you think through that a little bit better. And once you get past that 5,000, like the sky's the limit. It depends on your goals, and depends on your vision of what you're creating, depends how much you want to impact, and depends like kind of lifestyle you're trying to create. But you can do a lot more. And that journey could be shortcut if you're among the right people, getting the right feedback and the right training to move you forward, to actually implement, not just mental knowledge, but actually implement this process. And that's what we want to support you to do. So whether you're listening to this on our podcast or YouTube, join our free Facebook group, because we give a shit ton of free content. But if you're there and you've seen the value, and if you've tried it on your own for the last few months, then join us, because you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your business and your family if you're not.
Absolutely. How much does a shit ton weigh? Is it more than a ton, or is it less than a ton?
If we're taking the unit, it's still the same ton, but it just sounds good.
Awesome. We would love to see you in the Facebook group. If you are looking and you're ready to really invest in yourself and get going faster, quicker, then we would love to see you in the Coaching Mastery community as a pro member. Like Faisal said, we're not just another group that we just want money. And here's a course to take. No, like this is literal interaction with coaches all over the world. It's so incredibly powerful. I just can't be more grateful to the people that I've been able to meet and build relationships with. It's been quite spectacular. Yeah. So coachingmasterycommunity.com, or you can search for Coaching Mastery Community in the Facebook groups. We're both places. Thank you guys so much for listening to this. If you're listening or watching this in a place where you can put comments or give us feedback, please do so. Let us know what's been the most valuable for you, what we can do more content on, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.